Cloud-enabled transformation has evolved from cost-saving strategies to more innovation-disrupting strategies. Shankar Kalyana, IBM Fellow and CTO for Cloud Consulting Services IBM, talks to us more on the path to transformation with hybrid cloud. Shankar, thanks a lot for talking to me.
Absolutely.
What are the main roadblocks that businesses are still facing in their path to transformation?
So, I think there are probably a few different dimensions. The first is the, I would say not in any particular order of importance, but they're all equally important. So one is the sprawl of the legacy, right? In the sense of, everyone wants to go adopt cloud in its best possible state, but they are constrained by the various heterogeneous platforms and systems and technologies they actually have, right? So I think that is the inbuilt inertia of the legacy systems that are actually out there. But I think that also gives them the opportunity, because 80% of the data is actually locked in those legacy systems. So it actually allows them the opportunity to kind of extract that and integrate that to the cloud and really drive a transformation strategy on hitting two birds with one stone. So that's one. The other, I would say, is probably culture, right? Because this changes the way businesses and IT have traditionally worked with each other. It just changes the way IT traditionally has worked with each other, right? Between the application teams to the QA teams to the ops teams and the data center teams, etc. So it kind of a lot of changes, and then even between business and IT, how they actually work with each other. So I think it's I would say equal parts technology, equal parts constrained environments, and equal parts culture. And the last being, there's just too many starting points, right? They're all good starting points. And enterprises that work well, usually in this, they just know where to start. They just start somewhere and then go, right?
So they're definitely not lost.
No, it is. I think it's a great opportunity space for them, because, like I was mentioning before, maybe a few years back, the question was why cloud, right? And today it is not about why. It really is about how. It is about when. It's about where and with who, right? Those are the questions, right?
So, when you look into an hybrid cloud architecture, so several different cloud providers, how can you pick and choose, and how do you know when to stop as well? How do you know you've got enough?
Yeah. So I think the way I would frame it is hybrid is good, multi is good, because I think it's not about, we need to understand that for every one of these things, these are just means to an end. The end is about addressing those business drivers around, are you addressing cost efficiency, operational efficiency, are you looking to solve an agility problem, are you looking to create an innovation platform, or all of the above, which is usually the case, right? And when you are dealing with a sprawling real estate of multiple data centers and multiple applications that number in the hundreds and thousands, you have all of these become useful paths. So we haven't come across enterprises that just have said, look, I'm just going to go one way, and that's the only way. And by the way, that solves everything I want from me. Which is why I talk about this multi ecosystem issue, where you're talking about multiple providers, multiple deployment models, multiple types of IT speeds that you need to come into play, multiple instances of services, etc. So you really get into this heterogeneous ecosystem that actually stretches beyond the traditional enterprise walls into a different ecosystem. So I think that's the nature of the game in terms of where the world is actually heading. Cloud native is the principle that we want to get to, but not everything gets to be cloud native on day one. It's a journey towards cloud native. Exactly.
Is there times for that sort of journey, or does it depend on the business, on the application?
It does depend on the business and the application, but to my other point, there is no sequence in this, right? I mean, there's a path that you take, but you don't need to be sequential in it, right? While you are creating a cloud native path to cut through and address innovation opportunities immediately on day one, you can do that today, right? At the same time, you're also thinking about, well, that new innovation opportunity I created, I do have to integrate back to the legacy system. So how do I do that? So let me start modernizing the core, right? So you then start doing these in parallel, and then you realize that, well, guess what? I need to create some foundational elements around DevOps, around platform principles, around architecture, around how business and IT work, etc. So
the whole
culture
ecosystem.
and platform becomes another foundational element. So then you find out that you're actually doing all of them at the same time, right? So I don't think there's a sequence necessarily per se. It's really about, we call it a disposition strategy. You need to be able to analyze your portfolio from the standpoint of different dimensions and be able to say which workloads go where, what is the right path for me to address the agility opportunity versus the innovation opportunity. So I think it's really about following a method of the madness.
Method, I like that.
Yeah, we actually have Cloud Innovate as our methodology that we use because it's a complex problem to deal with for enterprises, and especially when you introduce not just internal culture but also regulatory constraints and consumer privacy constraints.
When you bring the whole
different, exactly, and global needs and global scale, it gets to be pretty complicated for enterprises to deal with. So we have tried to simplify that using patterns and techniques and approaches that are extremely automation driven and tool enabled to be able to address the whole space. So we call the Cloud Innovate in IBM. Right?
Okay. A lot of conversation has also been around microservices and cloud-based APIs.
Yeah.
How's that being brought in, and how is that sort of helping accelerate all this innovation and transformation?
So they are an integral part of this transformation strategy that we just talked about. So on one hand, so if you look at a continuum of an application, any business application, you can analyze that application and look at it through the lens of, well, you know what, this one needs to stay exactly where it is in the way it has been performing because I don't want to touch it. That's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is, you look at it and say, well, this application needs to be completely rewritten. It doesn't fit my model. So that's the other end of the spectrum. And 9 out of 10 enterprises today, in fact, I would even say 9.9 out of 10, they're adopting a microservices approach to do the build new, right? When they go in there.
Okay.
It has its pros and cons, but for the most part, it actually allows you some efficiencies that you didn't have on the legacy quote-unquote world before.
Okay.
But in this continuum, you have choices where microservices and APIs become the strategy for modernization, for example. Because if you say, well, I do want to take the application, start leveraging some value out of it, unlock value out of it, microservices are a way to refactor the code and extract pieces out of it. APIs are a way to enable your existing system to integrate to a newer one, etc. Right? So they become an integral part of the modernization strategy of an enterprise as opposed to just being a separate strategy, right? So
and everything comes together nicely.
They do, right? I mean, that's really the power of it. I mean, like I was mentioning this morning, we don't talk of cloud, in isolation from, say, DevOps. We don't talk of DevOps in isolation from Agile. We don't talk about any of these things in isolation from a microservices strategy as an architectural pattern. We don't talk of any of these things in isolation from an innovation design culture, right? So there are multiple facets that come together to really drive the two broad agendas that enterprises have, which is around transformation and innovation, right? So,
and then a lot of transformation is also happening within the DevOps space and the container space, especially on the container level.
Absolutely.
With all this new thing about artificial intelligence, about cognitive computing, about IoT, about edge computing, how is this all coming together now? So just a quick wrap up on an umbrella.
So I speak of cloud as a fabric. It may not be the perfect analogy because you cut pieces of fabric into many things, and I look at the fabric as something you weave things on.
Okay.
So the cloud has now become a fabric on which every one of these various things around, whether it's blockchain, whether it's data and cognitive and AI and ML, whether it's Internet of Things, they all become specific fabric elements that are specific capabilities that are now on the cloud. You cannot do a blockchain application today without using the cloud. Yes, you can. You should do it in some cases on a private on-prem type model, but you need the cloud type infrastructural construct or architecture to be able to drive it.
Okay.
Similarly, Internet of Things is all on the edge, and in the server farms in the standpoint of on the cloud. So cloud has now actually become a fabric around all these, integrating these elements together. And business solutions, they employ all these different things in a stack. So in IBM, we actually have we call it a one cloud architecture stack. That talks about the cloud as the platform that powers, the data between both intra and extra enterprise, and having a fabric to ingest and process and transform it while feeding it for analytical and cognitive reasons that really power new experiences. Right?
Is Watson involved in this?
Watson is a set of APIs that we are actually offering in the AI and ML space. That number in the high 2 digits now, right?
I know.
Yeah, and they're just continually evolving, right? So they solve various kinds of needs to be able to leverage, whether it's natural language processing to deep learning, to conversational techniques, etc. Right? So we have different kinds of services in there. Yeah.
Okay, and we are at Data Cloud 2018. If you come back to Monaco 2019, what is the one question that you have today that you would like to see answered in the next 12 months? about the industry?
Well, great question. So I think what we're going to see more and more is, on one hand, people want to get to cloud native fast because it kind of takes away the encumbrances of what we have today, right? So you'll see a lot of push towards cloud native. Second is you're going to see a lot of way more automation getting just ingested, environment in it.
Is it going to become natural to enterprises, or?
Well, not necessarily.
Not yet.
I don't think 12 months is too short a time for it. I think we're talking about a time span of maybe like 18 to 36 months. Where you'll see this will embrace much more like today 60% of the enterprises look at cloud as just a default, right? So you're going to see AI and ML
going through the same process.
All this become that the norm in maybe 3 to I would say 18 to 36 months, right? But it's evolving way faster than we predict, right? So I'm saying 18 to 36, and you may be right. We may be there
maybe
in
12 months.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's going to be good for IBM as well.
Well, it's going to be good for the industry, right? I think the ultimate beneficiaries are going to be people like us as consumers who get better experiences, and enterprises who are in the business of making money off of this, and then obviously the suppliers who are actually enabling all of this stuff. So I think the ecosystem is going to benefit.
It's an exciting time for sure.
It definitely is. I was sure born now as opposed to whenever I was born. So.
Okay, Shankar, thanks a lot for talking to me.
Absolutely.
Don't forget you can follow Data Economy on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and also visit the website on www.data-economy.com.